ये वीडियो एक पजल से शुरू करते हैं, which was asked in my IIM Calcutta interview. काफी common puzzle है, but pretty interesting as well. So think over it. So the puzzle goes like there are 3 boxes, and within each of them there are different kinds of balls. एक के अंदर only red balls है, the other one has only blue balls, and the third one has a combination of red and blue balls. And the catch is that each of them have been labeled incorrectly, and you cannot see inside the box obviously. So अगर मान लो box है with the red balls only, it will be labeled blue or a combination of red and blue, but उसके ऊपर label जो है वो incorrect रहेगा. And now the question is, what is the minimum number of balls that you can take out, and from which all boxes, which will ensure that you can label all the boxes correctly? So do comment if you get this answer. So coming to the interview experience, in this video, I'll be covering my IIM Calcutta Interview Experience. And through this particular video, I will be able to let you know why preparing for these interviews is very important. Because unlike my IIM Ahmedabad and IIM Code interviews that I had shared previously, where it did not require much preparation, rather it needed more presence of mind and I was asked questions on the spot itself. It was a very different kind of interview experience. However, IIM Calcutta interview was very different, where if I hadn't prepared for my undergraduation subjects, my basic maths and everything, it would have been very, very difficult to crack this particular interview. So my IIM Calcutta interview was scheduled at the campus itself. It's a very beautiful campus if you want to visit it once. There are lakes and everything. So if you get a chance to visit that once, it will also give you a lot of inspiration if you are trying to get in there as well. So, however, on the day of the interview, I was too tense to admire the beauty of the campus. Rather, my entire focus was on the interview and what I will say on the interview and everything. So, rather, I did not have time to roam around the campus and see things around. So, the entire process at IIM Calcutta was a bit prolonged and a bit delayed as well. So, once I entered the campus, I entered a verification room where verification of all the documents were happening. And it took a long time to get all the documents verified as well. Like, it was a very slow process. And after that as well, when we were going for the interviews, I was, I think, 6th or 7th in my panel, and it took a very long time because I think the time taken per candidate was pretty long compared to the other interviews that I had given. And I think it's just an opinion, but I think whenever these interviews are scheduled on campuses, it tends to be longer than usual because my IIM Calcutta and extra interviews were scheduled on the campus, and it took me around 45 minutes for those interviews, whereas the other interviews were around 25 to 30 minutes only. And I think the reason for this is that the professors, when they are in their campuses, they are much more relaxed. They know that even if they delay the entire interview schedule by a bit, it's not that they have a flight to catch or anything, so they can afford it. And that's why, I believe they tend to judge a candidate for a little bit longer if they get the opportunity to. So, but however, again, it can be a positive as well. It can be a negative as well, depending on how the situation is. Probably if you have not answered your initial questions well, then a longer time will give you more bandwidth to improve your situation. However, if you have been answering well, then probably you can boggle down under stress as well if it's a very, very long interview. So it can be both positive, negative, nothing that you can judge at this point of time. It's just an observation as well. It's not something which is fact based. So finally, my turn came after a very long waiting period, and as I entered the room, there were 3 professors, 2 male professors, 1 female professor, and they started with a pretty generic question. Tell me about yourself. So I told them about my schooling, my undergraduation, my interest areas, my work experience specifically. And after I was done with the introduction, they asked me that the previous person who had come into the interview room was also from the same company, ZS Associates. And they told that they have interviewed like more than 30-40 people from the same company for IIM Calcutta. So is there something in your company that everyone wants to leave? And I just smiled after that particular question, and I was like, rather my hypothesis is the selection process for ZS Associates. It's very much aligned with CAT paper. It's you have to solve a quant paper. There are logical reasoning case states and everything. So my hypothesis is that people who are already making it to ZS Associates are already prepared for CAT, and they end up getting good percentile for CAT, and that's why you're interviewing so many people from the same company. So nothing major here. They said that okay, they just looked at each other, and after that they said, let's start now. So the first question was a little bit difficult for me because they asked me about electrolysis reaction. That is, if you have this kind of a chemical, where will the cation go? Where will the anion go towards the cathode or the anode? And what kind of reactions will happen in the electrolysis chamber and so on. So I think the professor got confused with chemical engineering and chemistry, and it can happen with professors. It's not necessary that they will know everything out there. And many people also get confused that chemical engineering is chemistry, but I had studied this subject way back in my first year. It was more about physics, thermodynamics, heat transfer and all, not about chemistry at all. But the professor obviously asked me and I had to answer that. But I think I did a mistake over there. Midway, I said that, no, I did not study this in my chemical engineering. So it was way back that I had studied this. And I think that was a very negative approach. You should never say this, because the professor's reply was, you at least studied that in 11, 12, right? So you should remember that, no matter you did not study that in the college. So I think a better answer here would be to say that I had studied this subject in 11, 12 last and did not continue through this subject. So I don't remember everything, but I'll try to answer to the best of my abilities. I think that would have shown a more positive approach if I had started with the fact that I'll try to answer, but also highlighted the fact that I haven't studied that during my engineering days. Rather, my answer, what that showed was kind of a negative approach, that no, do not ask me this. I did not study this during engineering. It was in my school time. So it kind of had shown that kind of a feeling probably. And the professor was not very impressed with that kind of a answer. But somehow I tried to answer that. Anyway, I had to answer it. And I remembered few things after that. I wrote the equations and everything. And after that, I think they were a little bit satisfied that yes, at least this guy remembers something. So after this bombarded me with mathematical questions. I was so lucky to have revised my graphs and functions and everything. Otherwise, it would have been a very difficult situation. You can note it down if you want to, these particular questions that were asked to me. So I was asked to draw the graph of y is equal to mod of sin x. Then mod y is equal to sin x. After that, the third graph was y is equal to mod of sin x plus 5. And after that, it was y is equal to mod of sin x plus 5. The 5 was outside the mod this time. So this was the first set of graph that I was asked to draw. After that, it was a straight line equation. I don't exactly remember the straight line equation at this point of time, but you can consider it anything. Say y is equal to mod of 3x minus 5. So this kind of a graph they asked me to draw. So these particular 5 graphs, just one after the other, they were testing me out, and luckily I was able to draw all 5 of them. And I think that set a good tone for the rest of the interview. So then they started asking me engineering questions. And I think that professor was an engineer himself. And that's why he started asking me, going into the very specifics as well. First asked me about viscosity, then Bernoulli's theorem, and started going into the specifics of the theorem itself, which was a bit difficult for me to answer. And after that, they asked me which subject would I prefer to answer. And I told them heat transfer. So they started asking me about conduction, convection, radiation, everything, the laws of radiation as well. And then finally asked me a generic question that if suppose I have to minimize the loss of heat from this particular room, what are the steps that I can take? So the kind of answer that they wanted here was, how will I paint the walls? What kind of color I will do on the walls? What kind of insulations I will put to stop the heat loss through conduction, convection and radiation? So that's the kind of answer that they were looking at. However, this section was a bit difficult for me. Luckily, I had revised the basics of these concepts, so I could answer the basics pretty well. However, when they started asking me, going into the specifics and started asking me very, very specific questions around each of the terms within theorem, then I started, that was a bit of a hesitation. I couldn't answer everything over here. However, I would rate this particular section as pretty decent, that I at least answered the basics. And I think because I answered the basic, that's why they went into the advanced level, and they weren't really expecting to have me answer all of those questions, I think, but they wanted to make sure that at least I know the basic and the basic theorems and everything. After that, they started more with the general questions, and I was very happy with that, because I will always prefer these kind of questions over academic questions anytime. I'll like to answer on the spot rather than being answering something which requires requires a prior knowledge or something of that sort, current affairs or GK especially, or anything around academics. It's very difficult. It gets very difficult for me. And even during current affairs as well, I like when they're asking me about opinion rather than facts, that when this happened, when that happened, and so on. So I was very happy with this section, and they started revolving more around ethics and all. I think I made a mistake and said morality somewhere, which like caught the attention of a professor, and he asked me, do you think ethics and morality are the same? And I said no, I think I meant ethics only, and ethics is more universal for me, whereas morality is something which is shaped by the society. For example, if I should not do harm to someone, that's more like universal. However, in case of morality, for example, child labor or child marriage was probably moral at some point of time. However, today it's definitely immoral, and that's how the society has been shaped. Even sati was probably practiced at some point of time, and it was important for a woman to do that. But today we know how immoral it is. So it can be shaped by the society, but ethics is more universal. But so I don't know if it's the right answer or not, but they look pretty satisfied with this, and they went ahead. And finally, they asked me a case that suppose your father had given you some money. However, you did a favor to your friend by giving him that money because he needed it for some medical reasons. However, after a few months, you realize that probably that person, your friend, is lying, and he's spending on lavish lifestyle and food and everything. However, he's not returning your money. You have asked him several times, but every time he says next week or so, and he doesn't return your money. Now your father is asking that money back from you, and now you are in a dilemma what to do. Basically, the thing that you can do now is complain to his parents and get that money from them. However, that would mean that you will destroy your friendship forever. And the other way is that you just leave that money and tell your father that you had given that money and he's not returning it back. So what are the steps that you will take now was basically the question. And remember, in these kind of questions, do not try to be over smart and just go and tell them what you will actually do in real life. And yeah, suppose obviously many people will take steps that are not very ethical, not very moral, but very practical definitely, and they will splurt it out in the interview thinking that they are doing a very good thing by saying that because they are being honest and it will look very smart. However, it doesn't. There is a tone of formality in every interview, so you have to show that formality as well as humility in every interview that you are in. Any sense of over smartness that you show in these interviews, no matter how other people would say that, but people who have sat on those interviews and people who have interacted with professors from IIMs know that the last thing that any professor wants is to get an over smart candidate in their batch. They want people who are confident yet humble. So how I answered this particular question was, I told that I'll confront my friend that I have seen him spending lavishly on food and everything, and he does not intend to return my money, and ask him about all the medical condition as well for which he had taken my money. And that will be my first step. Definitely, I'll take the explanation from him and also give him an explanation about my situation when I have to return my money to my father and why it's very important for me to do that. And there can be two parts to this now. One, either I think that no, he has been lying to me, that gets confirmed that no, he's spending it and he's still cooking up a story. And if I think that his medical condition, whatever he had given, the reason that he had given before was wrong and he has no justification for that, probably I would not hesitate to break my friendship if he's being unethical with me, and I won't hesitate to go to his parents and get back my money as well. However, I'll obviously give him a warning that I'll approach his parents. If he wants to return the money, he can do so. Otherwise, I'll go and tell them about this particular thing that he has done. The other case can be that he is actually right. Probably my assumption and my thinking was wrong before, and he has proper justification for everything that he has been doing. And in that case, what I will do is probably try to think about whether the money is more important for me or whether the money is more important for him at that point of time. In case I see that money is more important for him, I will go back to my father and explain him the situation, why I had given the money to my friend and why I cannot return him the money. So there are different cases to this, and I'll properly analyze them and take my decision as and when it suits. I know it's a very, very silly answer if you analyze it from a real point of view. However, the thing is, it's a very simple thing. In an interview, what that shows is, first, you took a first particular step, which is ethical, and second, you or thought about it in different stages, that okay, if this happens, this will be your decision, if that happens, this will be your decision. So you're thinking in a very structured manner, and that is all that they would need to see, that you are ethical, you're not like over smart, you're confident, humble, and you're thinking in a structured and clear manner. So this was all from my Calcutta experience. I did happen to convert the interview. However, I did not join the college because obviously I joined IIM Ahmedabad. I received the call letter by then and chose that instead. And so let me know which interview experience you want me to cover next. I did appear for FMS, Accelerate, IIM Indore, IIM Lucknow interviews as well. So do let me know which interview experience you want me to cover next year, and do subscribe if you haven't yet already.